Morning. ShopDog says it's going to be a just him and me video today on the Pontiac. We are going to get reacquainted with the wiring. We started it a year ago. It's been a little while. And yeah, it's time to start looking at that because that will be holding us up soon. So, unfortunately, I really don't like to have a lot of people around when I'm doing the wiring. It's just too hard for me to remember because I'm now an old fat guy. So, today, we're going to pull all this mess apart and sort through and remember what on earth we were doing. I know the project's changed a little since we started, so I'm going to have to undo and redo a few things. But overall, it shouldn't take but a couple hours to kind of remember what we were doing and start looking at what I have to add, what I have to take away, because I really do want to get the bulk of the harness into the car in the next 3 weeks, because next weekend we're hoping to do the fuel system, and we're getting to a point where it's time to start getting some of this stuff back in the car. And much as you would expect, this doesn't start with the wiring. Right now, I've been taking and putting carburetor stuff out of my way. And so, I don't think this is permanent. I would prefer shelves in a cupboard. But I have these, and well, right now, they're doing the job. So that gets those out of my way. I've got a little more space over here I've got to clean up. And then I can finally pull this table out. Or actually, I'll probably just work at it where it is, but just trying to get in here, get some of this stuff put away, find a new home, clear some flat space so we can make a bigger mess. All right. The Henry wiring is back in place to be worked on. I got that crap out of my way. And I'm starting to get some flat space to work, because if we all remember, you do need a little room for this. So, I'm going to be moving that, and then I'll have both of these flat surfaces here to work on. So gotta sweep up the floor, put out my nice little cushy mat, and move those probably just to the other side, honestly. And I think we can get started trying to remember what we were doing. All right, a little bit of time has elapsed, and I am starting to sort out what on earth I was doing. Luckily, the harness is all still together. Some of the connectors are, I had the common sense to go ahead and clip them in there so I don't lose them. You hate to use them somewhere else. And you can kind of see some things I tend to do. This was the universal harness where I decided to harvest from a 67 harness and cut out the firewall. This, originally didn't go this direction. We had to pull this whole block apart, reorganize things, get a back shell on it, which we're not doing in the Henry, and start looming all the basic harnesses. This is the horn relay. I mean, you can look at some of these things and tell, that's an ignition switch. That's going to be a headlight switch. Now, this, because it doesn't look like a standard thing, you just start looking at color codes and seeing what you got. You got ground, you got battery. Well, a brown wire is probably an alternator. That is most likely going to, well, it's either an alternator or it means left. Kind of like right could mean horn, or it can mean right, for green. Blue, is this an oil pressure sender, or is this something else? Brown, the dark brown could be park lights. So one thing that's nice here is, these are labeled, so I can kind of go back. I can see that it says bat on yellow. So this means this is probably going to gauges, was where I was headed with that. In fact, these two connectors together go onto that dash, and then in the future we'll get connectors that go into a Dakota. What do we got here? A clock, a radio power, and the line for the heater. This is going to go to our aftermarket air conditioning. That's going to be our 30 amp source for that. This orange wire probably says electric fan on it. That would be my guess because it's so heavy. I see no words, but I'll look in my notes and see what we were doing. Okay, yeah, I've got that coming off of this breakaway connector here, so I'm sure I intended this for something aftermarket. What else do we have sitting here? That's pretty obviously for a turn signal switch. That is quite obviously going to fit on a brake switch. Now, I have to remember why I did this. I don't know. What on earth was I copying with that? You know, we'll take a look and find out. I should have some notes. Well, you can see, you know, this is from a year ago. A lot of notes. So I just got to go through it and figure out what on earth I was doing. Oh, and it was a 68, not a 67 harness that we harvested. So, you know, these are just pretty generic harnesses. You got to build every circuit yourself. But if you don't have a supported car, that is kind of, you know, what your options are. So, you know, look at everything. Most of it you can figure out pretty easily. It's not rocket surgery. So, one thing to note is I definitely see an awful lot of wires just sitting here without a connector that I know for a fact are going to go to the rear body harness, which means I didn't get around to terminating this yet, which is actually good because I want to add a wire for the fuel pump now. So, because I would like I tend to use well, in this case it's going to be right here, use a labeled spot for the fuse for the fuel pump. So, you know, the project changed a little bit. Still got plenty more circuits to go through up here, and I can see I've got a lot of excess wire that's been culled. But, well, you know, like this, I mean, this is obviously going to be the rear body harness. You know, you can look at that and tell. So, just kind of going through, remembering what on earth I was doing and what changes have to happen because we've changed fuel systems, we've changed, well, the whole EFI system has changed. I do want to integrate the heater and pretty much anything aftermarket I want integrated into the fuse box. I really don't like floating fuses. When you're on the side of the road and something bad's happened, you want to go to a fuse box. It's what I hate about modern cars. They got 40 fuse boxes in them, and half of them you don't know where they are, so you're kind of stuck. So this is where I'm at right now. Probably put another hour and a half, 2 hours out here before I got to go and start thinking about making supper. But yeah, I'll bring it back after a bit when I know a little bit more about what I'm doing. In my musing, as I've gone through, it looks like I was already anticipating adding cruise control at some point. So I had added this connector to get both sides of the brake switch, which you need for those cruise control modules. So maybe there's one up on the shelf up there and I don't remember it. But either which way, those are the two signals that it would need. So it looks like I've already taken care of that, and it looks like I was already thinking about it, so I've got notes there. I did find in my notebook the original breakout for the connector, so that is all the pinout on that. Now, I haven't found the other two sides of this that I'm going to need to populate with all the spades. I have a feeling that one of these boxes up here, I'm going to be depinning another harness to get those two back shells. I thought I had them already harvested, but apparently, if I did, I have lost them. So, you know, there is that. Going through the harness and kind of seeing where I'm at. Everything's looking fine. I'm currently changing some notes, and there's going to be a couple wires I'm going to have to move because we've gone to the sniper instead of the MSD, and some of the power and signaling requirements change. But I don't think it's going to be too hard for us to get this back on track. ShopDog has been inspecting, and he says, yeah, we got to remember about the relay. So, kind of going through notes, you know, ringing out wires and looking, and I know now what I was originally trying to do here and how I'm going to replicate it. Normally I bury the fuel pump relay way in the trunk. Well, this car doesn't have a trunk, so I intended to bury it up under the dash. So this is just going to be a connector going over for the fuel pump relay, and then here's the output of that coming back. And of course I've got to do my rear body harness. So I'm going to tie that, the rear camera power feed, some courtesy light, because that's going to have to go back, but I'm going to have to put a connector up here and harness it out. So those all have to go to the back. This is the standard auxiliary harness minus the fuel pump that's been moved here. This was for expansion for cruise control. Here's brake switch. Current dash doesn't have a tack, but we're going to need one, so there's that. Okay, this is, ignition switch. This was power to something that'll become relevant when I'm under the dash. I'm sure it was something, obviously neutral safety and reverse lights, which are only wired to here at the moment because I got to do something with them. So, just because it's turning on. So this also has to go to the rear body. This has to be fused. Probably just go to one of the turn signal fuse or something. So I'll look at that in case I don't actually have one for backup. Let's see. We already know this is for the instrument cluster and the wiper switch and the steering column. So before this block can go in, a couple things have to happen. One, dimmer switch. I don't even see. Oh, well, actually it's right there. Never mind. Let's see. Is the dimmer switch in the standard location? And it is. So, okay. Never mind. That got real easy. So, dimmer switch I already took care of. You can see here is how I added a new back shell. It just comes like this. Of course, all the wire was going that way. So I've got to figure out how many wires are going to the rear body harness, and then I can figure out what connector or connectors I'm going to use for that. Traditionally, it's a funky flat, and then they all run across the floor. I think it's still, yeah, you can see that's the raceway right there. I haven't decided which way I'm routing it yet, but probably a chunk of this mess in the interior is going to have to come out to do it. And of course there's all the wire, and honestly if I need more, I've got plenty of this stuff. So there may be an intermediary connector for making things a little longer. The other thing I need to consider is getting power back to the amplifier back here, as well as the speaker wires, and getting power to the air ride system. So I'd really like to kind of keep things as common as possible to make troubleshooting in the future easier. Obviously we got to get the fuel pump back there and the fuel level gauge. We got a wire for that, so we'll get that back there. So yeah, this is already about half done. I've got to change a few things a little bit, and I got this weird suspicion that I had already done this count at one point, and I have a feeling that's probably my rear body harness, but we will find out. So this considering it's starting to dim outside a little bit, this might be the end of the day. If it is, ShopDog says thanks for watching.